Good afternoon if you're in Sydney, and good morning if located in Qatar. I'd like to welcome you all to this webinar or virtual event that we're hosting on bilateral and synergistic opportunities between Qatar and Australia. My name is Hilton Wood, and I'm the Chief Representative Officer of Doha Bank in Sydney. And during the current COVID pandemic, it certainly placed a lot of pressure on global economies, including Australia. However, Australia was one of the quickest to bounce back after authorities imposed strict restrictions, with June quarter GDP expanding by 0.7% ahead of market expectations to be 9.6% throughout the year. The strongest year rate on record. And although the Australian economy is now 1.6% above its pre-pandemic level, with our recovery continuing to lead the pack ahead of many advanced economies, we certainly are in a bit of a downturn with the current lockdowns. But I'm sure that the Australian economy, which is very strong, resilient, will once again bounce back strongly once these lockdowns are over, due to the vaccination rates, which we're well aware of, are certainly coming through quite strongly in certainly New South Wales especially. As a quick introduction for Qatar, which I'm sure many of you won't need a lot of information on, it's a landmass of around 11,600 square kilometres only, with a population of just over 2.7 million, which is very much from the foreign workers and expats. Qatar is a fast-growing economy, blessed with strong gas reserves, and is currently one of the largest exporters of LNG, accounting for around 1/3 of global LNG exports. Based on current production levels, Qatar's gas reserves are expected to last for another 130 years. Qatar's GDP in 2020 is around 146 billion, and in 2008, Qatar launched its Economic Vision 2030, which plans to diversify, reduce the country's reliance on hydrocarbon sector, exports, and the non-oil sectors, which includes a focus on areas such as healthcare, technology, research and development, manufacturing, education, tourism, and services sector. Qatar and Australia have enjoyed a very close and strong bilateral relationship for many years, and Qatar has consolidated its place as Australia's second largest trading partner in the Middle East and North Africa. Australia's annual two-way goods and services trade with Qatar reached a new all-time high of Qatari Riyals 5.8 billion, or around 2.33 billion Australian, according to the Australian Bureau of Statistics. Two-way trade grew 28% year on year and has increased fourfold over the past decade. And certainly this can be represented by a number of aspects, including the Australian Embassy, which has been opened in Qatar not that long ago. Doha Bank's representative office in Australia was established in 2012. Since then, we have been providing support to the bilateral relationships between Qatar and Australia, and Doha Bank has become the first bank in the Gulf Cooperation Council, within the Gulf Cooperation Council, to set up and establish a presence in Australia. This represents the bank's long-term commitment to act as a catalyst for trade and investment between the two countries, as well as being a key strategic partner that can help build bridges between Qatari and Australian companies and projects. Today, we have the honour and privilege of having the following speakers: His Excellency, Mr. Saad Al-Sharif, Ambassador, Embassy, State of Qatar. His Excellency, Mr. Jonathan Muir, Ambassador, Australian Embassy, based in Qatar. Mr. Moin Anwar, Trade and Investment Commissioner for the Middle East, New South Wales Government. And of course, our CEO Global for Doha Bank, Dr.Seetharaman, as moderator, which I now hand over to him.
Thank you, Hilton. What a joy and privilege to be integral part of this interesting and exciting session, bilateral and synergistic opportunities between Qatar and Australia. Two eminent countries known for its governance, now big and small, essentially converging in multiple forms of substance, trade or investments, banking or finance. With the changing face of the world is going through extraordinary set of transformation. With over 220 million people impacted, we lost nearly 4.55 million deaths. That's tragic. The human loss is not measurable. At the same time, how we are coming together in an interconnected, interdependent world, recognizing we have economic risk, and we need to map it through governance. Human risk, as I mentioned, we need to find solutions to bring in better world, better citizenship to this world. We are also objectively looking at environmental risk and how do we use this opportunity to redefine ourselves in terms of global warming and climate change and creating a carbon neutral society if it is possible to create carbon negative society for our future generation welfare. We also have to recognize social risk. Hitherto not witnessed. We have seen extraordinary set of healthcare challenges and the principle-centered values in terms of social distancing or hygiene. Other tested, proven methods are all being in execution. The world is changing. Everything is changing. The monetary and fiscal policy alignment globally has been redefined. Improving the liquidity, ensuring debt servicing capacity comes in. Business continuity is the key. From disaster to business continuity is a mission. Now, we are all coming together. We are converging on the bigger mission to bring in value to humanity, human dignity, and human prosperity. We also recognize every country is redefining. And we have exemplary policy frameworks getting unified in terms of monetary or fiscal. And again, some of the other risk and governance which I mentioned in various spectrum have been well managed. And today, in global terms, nearly 28% has been administered, nearly over 2.2 billion been administered vaccines. Qatar, in its own respects, the wise governance, visionary leadership, in all these four factors, whether it's economic, social, human, or environmental side, has taken enormous measures to see business continuity is very much there. We want to enlighten you to recognize what Qatar has done in the last 18 months or so, how it is resurging as a country of great substance and substantive compliance. Of course, we had 235,000 people impacted. We lost nearly 673 people. Same time, vaccination today, if you look at the eligible population, it's crossing over 85%. If you look at the total population, it's over 77%. So it's poised for reorganization, getting ready for plenty of initiative, including FIFA World Cup 2022, the hydrocarbon momentum, non-hydrocarbon momentum, all plenty of excitement in this part of the world. And that's what we want to showcase. Again, Australia, in its own respects, have done an extraordinary job recognizing the challenge, ensuring social risk management to highest level, and ensuring the fiscal prudence and monetary prudence simultaneously, whether interest rate or again, monetary policy, improving the liquidity, fiscal side, ensuring we have over 390 billion has been pumped, 20 billion straight to the overall healthcare and infrastructure creations. Again, job seekers protection and ensuring that we have aviation or healthcare systems are fully functional. They have allocated enormous amount of fiscal discipline to see that fiscal and monetary prudence stand in full alignment. Extraordinary governance in terms of overall measuring it, managing it, and controlling it. Same time, the country of great substance. And we are seeing the reflection in terms of economic momentum. My colleague just mentioned about the growth. We are all optimistic about the overall opportunity post-COVID as well. But we are going to look at objectively and make sure that we have a bigger picture in mind. One of the days. Now we have to look at how do we promote between these two countries, enhancing the trade, enhancing the investment opportunities, which will be the sector. Qatar's GDP and allied reserves are exemplary in terms of investable surplus as a diversification structured solution. Qatar Investment Authority, as MIBRAS or Saad have already ventured. And we have bigger scope for Qataris to invest. And similarly, Australians investment authorities or institutions or individuals or banks can come together and promote trade or investments, banking or finance. And that is the very purpose of the submission. Along with me, to enlighten our audience today, which is absolutely mind-boggling. Good number of audience, institutions, individuals, both the sides are attending this. We have the great privilege, and I personally want to welcome His Excellency Mr. Saad Sharif, Ambassador, Embassy of State of Qatar in Australia. His Excellency Jonathan Muir, Ambassador, Australian Embassy, Qatar, and my good friend, Mr. Moin Anwar, Trade and Investment Commissioner. He has been supporting our mission since 2012, ever since we planned to commission our, the minute diplomat ties were put in place in 2012 in Canberra, we are there. And that's what our alignment and synergistic mission is all about. Our intentions are genuine. We want to further live up to the expectation of both the sides. We want to make sure, time and again, we will commit ourselves as a premier financial institutions to promote the bilateral values. And then we will have question answers. I'm sure there will be enough questions through online real time. We are here to do these sessions to your satisfaction and create values. And within 90 minutes, we'll try our level best to answer. Otherwise, we will respond to you post this event to ensure that you're fully clarified in terms of substance, what you need to understand about these bilateral opportunities. That is precisely my preface. I'm going to showcase, as a last speaker, overall opportunities between Qatar and Australia in bilateral terms. Now, I'm getting on with the bilateral opportunities and macroeconomic fundamentals of both the countries. Here is my presentation. Now, let's talk first the global. There are three components we have to look at. And global is very important. We are living in an interconnected world, interdependent world, and essentially, we need to make sure that we come to terms what's happened resonates in one part of the world impacting other. So I'm going to just look at the big picture, whether it is IMF or World Bank, monetary policy or fiscal policy at a global level. Then I'm going to move on to Qatar. Qatar has done tremendous work in the last 1.5 years. Enough re-regulation, market liberalization. I'm going to showcase the opportunities. And again, the same perspective we look at Australia in terms of economic fundamentals and the decisions taken in the last 18 months and how we see anchor potential opportunities in multiple form and substance. That's what the summary is going to be with me. 4 of my colleagues are also joining, the head of Treasury Investments, Mr. Gudi Stalehold. We have a representation from wholesale banking, Mr. Ahmad Naji. We have a trade expert, Mr. Namit Gatani. We have international head of international banking, who deals with FIs and financial institutions in tandem in both sides. So he is there to represent. And again, when it comes to retail, we are here to showcase our opportunities as well. When if you're coming to Qatar, whether SME or individuals, we have transaction-based processing where all we will give the digital advantage, convenience, and cost-effective mechanism. So this is the purpose of the session as such. And the diplomats have said what they have to say. And again, the Trade Commissioner has mentioned the trade as well as investment opportunity. Let me connect all this and give you my summary. The first one, we have to understand the global economy. Now, when it comes to global economy, we need to recognize it is not an easy 2020. We had a contraction in global terms. The sudden, pandemic has destabilized the global framework. The governance was disturbed. Global governance was disturbed to a large extent. Gone are the days of 2008, where it was only liquidity issue. Liquidity crisis moved into funding to solvency, and perhaps it impacted certain sovereigns. Now, this is not a simple crisis. It's a transformational change, is what I would like to say it here. In global terms, if you look at the World Bank outcome, they have redefined 3 times the indicators, economic indicators. global growth, if you look at objectively, what IMF has said in the last year, October, in the annual fund meeting, which is virtual again, redefined in January, Davos didn't take place. So the indications came from IMF was different from what they said, because we thought the game was over last year. So we'll be resurging in terms of investments. It didn't happen as much as it should. Now, again, they revised it in the spring meeting in April and June. Clearly, the advanced economies have accelerated their performance. That's the indication we got because vaccinations have gone into the right, maximum space in advanced economies, developing economies, or emerging markets, which were hitherto performing exceedingly well, over 60-65% of the incremental GDP come from the emerging markets, and may slow down because the vaccine administration was a bigger issue. So the revised target came from both IMF as well as World Bank. And that was a revelation. If you look at the big picture, the final summary, which came in July, IMF said the global growth is not 6.4%, it's going to be 6% in global terms. Advanced economies 5.6%, and emerging market will report around 6.3% as against 6.7%, for the reasons which I mentioned to you. Now, what do? We need inflation. We need to make sure employment comes in. So Federal Reserve was contemplating time and again whether to increase the interest rate or not. They put the step forward and then pull it back because it's a cumulative fulfillment, whether it is economic momentum or inflation, and again, employment have to synchronize to make sure you can inflate. They have seen there are reasons why we need to increase the interest rate. And that was the starting point for the monetary policy to come to terms. Now, we have reasons to believe that this is not an easy task. Now, Fed came with a clear comment. What's the latest one? As good as early this month, end of last month.
At the FOMC's recent July meeting, I was of the view, as were most participants, that if the economy evolved broadly as anticipated, it could be appropriate to start reducing the pace of asset purchases this year. The intervening month has brought more progress in the form of a strong employment report for July, but also the further spread of the Delta variant. We will be carefully assessing incoming data and the evolving risks. Even after our asset purchases end, our elevated holdings of longer-term securities will continue to support accommodative financial conditions. The timing and pace of the coming reduction in asset purchases will not be intended to carry a direct signal regarding the timing of interest rate liftoff, for which we have articulated a different and substantially more stringent test. We have said that we will continue to hold the target range for the federal funds rate at its current level until the economy reaches conditions consistent with maximum employment and inflation has reached 2% and is on track to moderately exceed 2% for some time. We have much ground to cover to reach maximum employment, and time will tell whether we have reached 2% inflation on a sustainable basis.
Whether we will reach 2% inflation on a sustainable basis. Watch his words. Fed cutting bond. They've been doing bond buying programs, and they have to cut it. Tapering is coming. So long as the economic progress continues, it will happen before the year end. It doesn't mean rate increase or looming. And that's what we need to understand. That's a clue between the words you read. Interest rate hike based on maximum employment progress. And that's the situation. Let me come to Qatar for in terms of the overall spectrum. Qatar's economic momentum, as I said, it is, as was mentioned, and we have taken oil on a conservative basis on the fiscal side. We're going to report around 166 billion. That was the original conceptions when last year, November, when we had the indications. And we were supposed to have around inflation of around 2.4%. Current account will be a surplus. Now, fiscal also will be a surplus. Look at the oil price. We've taken 40, and it is now more. Qatar economic growth 3%, and essentially next year it should reach 4.1%. These are indications by global missions like IMF and World Bank. Qatar COVID-19 cases, if you look at it, it's around 235,000. As I mentioned in my preface, around 603. Healthcare system has been well engined and they perform exceedingly well. Now, so far we have done 2.2 million. That's almost 77% of the total population. Eligible population is much more. What's this 2030 vision? Now, in substance, the economic vision, or the social mission, or the environmental mission, or the human mission, if you converge in all this 2030 vision, which is fine-tuned with the development strategy, time and again, as Emir has said it in St. Petersburg International Forum. So we have plenty of prospects. The long-term plan is visible, and there are short, medium-range plans are being laid out with that purpose in mind. So that's where we need to recognize the opportunities. When it comes to fiscal policy, if you look at the revenue, that's around 160 billion. Expenditure, 195 billion. So deficit, you're going to have around 35 billion. That's based on $40 per barrel. Education, healthcare, infrastructure, they're all topping between 15 to 20 billion Qatar riyal, 17.4, 17.8 respectively. And again, your infrastructure is going to be modernized in multiple forms, not necessarily confined to 2022 alone. A budget was based on our conservative estimates, and both the quarters, if you look at it, we have investable surplus coming in, and that's why I said fiscal, you will have a surplus. Now, when it comes to banking sector, we need to understand banking is doing well. If you look at our lending growth, it's around 9.2%. We have done the first 7 months. And again, government has taken steps to postpone the installments and interest. That's also a part of the credit creation. If you look at the overall value advantage for debt servicing, they gave the benefit on account of liquidity stress in the global scene. Everyone has had a synchronized monetary policy, I should say. The government sector has grown by 16%. Real estate has grown by 4%. Consumption has grown by 4%. And again, contracting has grown by nearly 7%. And when it comes to services, that's phenomenal. 9% it has grown. Trading is growing around 6%. And deposits also has grown nearly 5.5%. So we have tremendous momentum in the banking sector. That gives the financial stability in tandem. They also issued a new currency note that is also meaningful. When it comes to hydrocarbon, hydrocarbon side, we have plenty of the reasons to believe this is going to further enhance the revenues. It's a considered vision. It's a world largest project of nearly 40 billion. It was, of course, North Field East and South. 29.5 billion was the first phase of it that has been already pronounced. And Qatar plans to boost its energy production, 126 million tons a year, by 2027. Now, first phase is already on, 77 to 110. The next phase will come, 110 to 126. Watch this. I'll take a look at the.
As far as the North Field expansion projects, we have two projects, North Field East, which we just announced sanctioning, and the North Field South. So the North Field East would take us from 77 million tons to 110 million tons per annum. And then North Field South, which we'll announce early next year, will take us to 126 million tons. We've announced our strategy. Our strategy is very clear and is defined. These are very robust projects. We just mentioned last week that the total project cost for North Field East is $28.75 billion to produce 32 million tons per annum of LNG by 2025. this is one of the most competitive, if not the most competitive project on the planet today. And we're very proud of that. And we're moving ahead for our long-term vision of reaching 126 and maybe more.
Most, maybe more. So oil, gas, and petrochemicals are all, if I put in one fabric, it's going to be huge in terms of recurring revenues. And energy security is a major concern in the emerging markets. Everyone knows this. We have seen long-term contracts. China is signing. Vietnam is buying. Bangladesh is scaling up. India is changing the energy mix. There are better opportunities, private side as well as public side. Now, so plenty of reasons to believe Qatar's revenue generation is well planned and it is going to grow. The cabinet announced.
If you look at what's, people don't talk about today, 30% approximately of the world power is actually fired by coal. Okay, if you take the North Field expansion NFE project that we just sanctioned last week, just the NFE, not the NFS, and you just take that project and you say, I'm going to replace that volume of gas to fire up, electric generation instead of coal, you actually reduce the CO2 emission in the world by 125 million tons per annum. That is equivalent to 25 million cars emissions in a year.
Yes, we're all looking for a greener world, isn't it? Building a green economy has been the top-notch mission of United Nations now. So plenty of reasons to believe we are in the right direction. It's energy efficient, environment friendly. Now, there are many decisions taken last 1 year, 1.5 years I mentioned to you. The cabinet approves the support for the private sector, for even SME for that matter. There are freebies, there are concession interest, and again, making sure every sectors which are impacted has been supported in tandem. On the trade side, if you have to understand the dynamics, now we have seen Qatar trade surplus has grown 185% between June 2021 to last year, June 20, and the number is mind-boggling. We have seen the reflection in the details. And when it comes to FIFA 2022, everyone is excited about it. Take a look at this clip.
Especially considering that we're coming out of COVID-19, I genuinely believe it'll be the first global celebration where we will collectively have overcome COVID and we will collectively be able to celebrate this tournament and create a lasting bond. And that's why I think it's when I always thought it was previously significant, I believe the significance has become even more.
Qasim Tawadi, the Secretary General of 2022, brilliant administrator in substance. So we have absolute promising, relationship in the market across the globe. And that's what the leadership is all about, and it's all going in the right direction. When it comes to vaccinated flight, Qatar, His Excellency Ambassador Jonathan was mentioning how it is the partnership on the aviation side is growing. Now, Qatar has experimented it, and it has been a good jet.
These Qatar Airways staff members are all fully vaccinated, and so are all these passengers. The airline wants to reassure millions of people that air travel is safe even during the pandemic.
We want to be the first airline in the world to do a fully vaccinated flight, both including passengers and the crew. And Qatar has a very aggressive vaccination program, and so we at the airline level have a very aggressive vaccination program. We have vaccinated nearly 20,000 of our employees, and we vaccinate around 1,000 employees every day.
Yeah. Watch this again. International airport.
Welcome to Doha from every one of us, even those working quietly behind the scenes, so you can relax and enjoy the perfect break in your journey. with a smile, we know our day's work is done.
That's what it is. They have witnessed double-digit growth in number of. We look at the seaport, that's growing. Number of ships have doubled, and the airport is doing exceedingly well. And that's what the reflection we are seeing. Let me move on to the Australian economy again. We have a very good partnership in the making as such. On the monetary side, the Reserve Bank of Australia has done a terrific job. They're not buying $5 billion from now on. They're going to do $4 billion bond buying program. But still, they're supplementing it. The 2024 yield on the bond has been put in right spectrum. So they are in the right direction in terms of monetary policy. And we have seen fiscal policy has been very well played. I should say that, because when I do the comparative framework, let us look at the economics, underlying economics in terms of the overall momentum. Australian economy is supposed to produce around 1.6 trillion perhaps, and next year it may move to 1.7. The growth is around 400% this year. That's a minimum they're targeting. Inflation is under control with 1.7%. And again, with the current account surplus, nearly in billion terms, it is US dollar terms, I should say around 38 billion. That's the number IMF is saying. When it comes to percentage of GDP, if you look at it, it's around 2.3%. So current account, there's a surplus. And when it comes to COVID case, they manage it well. When it, overall, if you look at 63,000 cases, and the death is around 1,000. And when it comes to vaccination, 7.8 million people have been vaccinated, fully vaccinated, which is around 31%. So still moving in the right direction. The monetary policy, fiscal policy, central bank is, again, the bond buying programs are all going to help. If you look at the big picture, a third round of quantitative easing program they announced, and they are going to make sure the federal budget and the monetary policy is aligned. And that's more important. Government is spending, as I said in my preface, nearly 311 billion and 20 billion on the health support. And when it comes to economic stimulus, this is nearly 290 billion. Now, it has gone in multiple forms, nearing a billion. I should say around 880 million over 2 years to support the medicine they're going to spend. Government will provide 1.9 billion for the next 5 years for the vaccines. It's all been planned out. The budget provide also, I was reading the budget, 15.2 billion for infrastructure. That's good. That is, as a form of stimulus, the government count this as a COVID-related spending. I mean, that's an opportunity. We have to believe prudent decision making is all about use this crisis and get your political alignment and making sure politics and economics converge, because long-term value creation is more important, and that's what precisely the government of Australia has done. Let me move on to the specifics in terms of the Doha Bank Australia, and I had the privilege of having a meeting with the Prime Minister Julia Gillard in 2011 during the Commonwealth Summit, and she asked me a question: when you're going to come to Australia? I said, I'm just waiting for our diplomat missions comes in. Then I see an opportunity. And again, Kevin Broad, the deputy also, as we were sitting in the dinner table, and we had an extensive discussion. Then I came back and I saw that we should, I saw the opportunity and then discussed with my board. And my board has endorsed, central bankers said yes. Now we need to scale it up. That's what our vision is all about. We opened our office, as Hilton has mentioned, in 2012, formally inaugurated. We did a fantastic job, thanks to Hilton. In Sydney Intercontinental, we have showcased everything. What is the potential opportunities, and the things were moving in the right direction. And when blockade started in 2017, I was there. Perhaps Hilton can recall. We did a session to clarify there's nothing to worry as far as Qatar economic fundamentals are concerned. And we did a luncheon in Hotel Shangri-La. It was widely attended, and we had good flow of deputy mayor of Sydney was there. So it was a good function, good content. And again, we keep moving in the right direction. The last interface with various Australian banks for me, I'm waiting to go now. I want to visit and meet the business community banks and see whether we can scale up our operation itself further. That was in Cyprus in 2018. What a combination of trade exhibitions plus global financial institutions were all aggregating their products and services. Now let's look at the opportunities between these two blocks. That's very important. Now,
a late night arrival at Sydney Airport, one of the few international flights still operating. Qatar Airways flying to Australia's 5 major capital cities every day. Despite strict passenger limits, just 60 people into Adelaide, fewer in Perth and Sydney, 25 allowed into Brisbane, Melbourne, 0.
In every dark times, there are opportunities.
Each flight operates at a loss, but Qatar is finding a silver lining.
When we are going in with limited numbers of passengers, we are filling our bellies with cargo to serve the economic requirement of Australia, especially where all the borders are closed.
For parents like Michael Thomas, it's been a lifeline.
We saw all the flights cancelled. We couldn't actually get home to Perth. We were sort of told that we'd need to buy business class tickets. So instead of paying $6,000 for our flights, we'd be paying $24,000.
Stuck in Canada after the birth of his surrogate son, Riker, Qatar stepped up.
They're definitely an airline I didn't even know about. They weren't on my radar at all.
Surrogacy Australia's helped more than 50 Aussie couples to get in or out of the country in the past few months.
So it's been a lifesaver for us to have an airline like Qatar prepared to lose money, prepared to take these parents with them.
Passengers who can't afford soaring ticket prices remain stuck overseas as calls for the federal government to relax inbound restrictions grow louder.
We cannot let our passengers left behind like all the other airlines did.
What a spirited comment by His Excellency Abdul This just shows the commitment on both sides.